Hey everyone, it's Jananie and welcome back to my channel, The Story Ain't Over. So as you guys know, I did not do a wrap up for July, but I'm really excited to bring you a wrap up for August because I actually read in August. Woohoo! So I read a total of 5 different books and I'm going to tell you about each of them today. Usually I do a non-spoiler section and then a spoiler section for this video for each book, but I found that the video started to get really long, especially when I read more than 4 books. So I am just going to be doing non-spoiler reviews for most of these, but if you guys wanted to hear more thoughts, I'm happy to discuss in the comments if you have spoilery things that you want to talk about. But before we get into the 5 different books that I read in August, I did want to tell you a little bit about the sponsor of today's video, which is Skillshare. So Skillshare is an awesome online learning platform for creative and curious people where you can find a bunch of classes on everything from illustration to photography to graphic design to marketing to literally anything you can think of. There is a class for it on Skillshare. I've talked about Skillshare a bunch of times on my channel and you guys know how much I love it, and I'm always finding something new to learn through Skillshare. The class I wanted to highlight today is character design from first idea to final illustration, and this is taught by Jazza Brooks, who is a YouTuber and artist and entrepreneur. I thought this one was really cool because Jazza walks you through creating your own original character, from finding inspiration to creating your first sketches to your final illustration. I've been trying to get more into illustration, but I do find it's a hobby that I need to put more time and effort into to actually see any improvement in, and Skillshare is definitely helping with that with these wonderful classes. So yeah, Skillshare is super awesome and you should definitely check it out and learn a new skill, and you can use the link in my description, and the first 1,000 people who click it will actually get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare Premium. So you should definitely use that link down below because it's a full month trial, not just 2 weeks, and you can take so many classes in just 1 month. So I highly recommend it. If you are on the fence about whether you should try Skillshare or not, definitely just go click the link and use the trial and you won't regret at least trying it out and learning something new. Alright, but thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and now let's get into the 5 books that I read in August. Alright, so the first book that I read in August was the book that got me out of my reading slump, and I am so grateful for Penguin Teen for sponsoring the reading vlog that I did for this book, which is Goddess in the Machine by Laura Beth Johnson. So yeah, I did a full reading vlog for this book, and honestly it was the perfect book to get me out of a reading slump. It is a sci-fi that also feels a little bit like a fantasy, where the main character is a 22nd century teen who goes into cryonic sleep with her friends and family and is expecting to wake up 100 years later on a different planet, but instead wakes up 1,000 years later to find all of her friends and family are dead and she is on a whole new planet and she doesn't know what's going on, and the people around her all seem to think that she's some sort of goddess that has emerged from this machine. It was honestly such a cool book and I loved how the technology worked in this world, and I think the reason that this book got me out of my reading slump was because it had so many great plot twists. There was just so many successive ones coming in the second half of the book, which I just really enjoyed, and so it made me want to keep reading and find out what was going to happen at the end. I had so much fun with this, but you should definitely go check out the reading vlog that I did for it if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts and more spoilery thoughts as well, because I did do a spoilery section at the end of that video. Alright, the next book that I decided to pick up in August is Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Iyamide, and this one was very cool and very interestingly done, and I think a lot of parts of it were done really well. I do think to a certain extent I had hyped this a little harder in my head than it turned out to be, and I was disappointed by certain aspects of it, but overall I think it was a great read and one I would definitely recommend to people. It's just I had slightly more higher hopes for it. I think mainly just because of the writing style. I just didn't connect to it in certain instances, and I felt like there was scenes in it or parts of it that just felt unnecessary to the storyline. But the main storyline was actually really good, and the plot line and all of that. Another thing that I found really annoying, but this makes sense, it's a YA book with teen protagonists, so they do stupid things, but I felt like the characters were doing a lot of stupid things in this book, and it was just they got through things in very convenient ways. But regardless, I think it was still very cool. Basically, if you guys don't know, this follows 2 different Black students at this really fancy private academy called Nevaeh, and the 2 of them are prefects for the year, for their senior year. water. And soon after this is announced, someone named Aces starts sending these anonymous texts to everyone in the school, revealing different secrets about each of them. So Chiamaka and Devin. And Chiamaka is sort of like Blair Waldorf. She's really rich, but she's also like the it girl at her school, is really popular and has made sure that everyone knows that she's sort of better than them and, you know, more successful than them. And then Devin is really the kid who like fades into the background. He's from the hood and he's also a scholarship student at the school, so he has always felt a little bit like a fish out of water. But yeah, so the two of them are sort of getting targeted by this person named Aces who's revealing their secrets. And it feels a lot like Gossip Girl in that way because of the whole Aces element and just like the fact that they're at this like really fancy, rich private school. But as the book sort of progresses, you start to see these sort of like racial undertones to this. And I think that aspect of this book was just so well done and so interesting. Like I felt like the mystery around Aces and like them trying to figure that out was just so compelling. And I was like so invested in trying to find out what was going to happen. I think what fell flat for me was all of the other stuff going on and just sort of the motivations of the characters. I felt like sometimes they just did weird things that I just didn't understand why they were doing it, and it didn't really add to the plot. But overall, I think it was still a great book and like the overall story was really cool. And by the end of it, I was like, whoa, this was like crazy intense. Another thing I found that was interesting, and I don't know if this helped or hindered the book, but I read in the acknowledgements that the author purposely tried to make the book feel like it wasn't set in a specific city. So you couldn't tell if it was set in like London or like New York. It seemed vaguely, you know, Western. But you couldn't really tell where in the Western world this book was set. And it was on purpose because she wanted to show how this experience is slightly universal, like the racism that these kids face, which I thought was so interesting. But I think to a certain extent, the fact that it wasn't set in a specific place sort of made it feel really sort of strange in a way. I can't really explain this, but like it didn't feel grounded. But regardless, I think it was still a really good book and I really liked the characters. I think they were very unique, Chiamaka and Devin, and like they both had their very distinct voices and things going on. And then for those of you who don't know, this actually is queer. So both Chiamaka and Devin end up in same-sex relationships, which I thought was really cool. And those aspects were really cute as well. So I enjoyed that part. And overall, this was like a good book. I think if you're looking for a thriller, if you're looking for a book with queer POC main leads, and this is like a fantastic book to pick up and also a really great dark academia to pick up as well. All right, the next book that I picked up was for the HarperCollins Canada Frenzy read along. So it's a read along that they run on like social media and they read like a book over the course of a month, I think, or a few weeks, and there's a live show at the end. So I actually hosted a live show with the authors of this book, and that is Sisters of the Snake by Sasha and Serena Nanua. So this is a twin sister fantasy written by two twin sisters, which I thought was super cool. And basically it is inspired by South Asian history and mythology, and it follows two different girls, so Ria and Rani. So Ria is this thief in the city in this like fictional fantasy world, and she has been an orphan for most of her life and grew up in an orphanage. And then the other main character is Rani, who is actually the princess of the kingdom, and she is known as the Snake Princess because the royalty in this world are basically the only people who have magic left in this world. Other people used to have magic, but no longer. And the royals have one specific type of magic, which is snake magic. So Rani actually has like a snake familiar, like a animal, you know, companion type thing named Shima, who is like this like really funny and sarcastic snake who like has commentary on basically everything, but she's also kind of deadly, and they share like sort of a bond so they can talk to each other through their little mind link. And Rani also has like snake magic, so she can like manipulate people with the magic as well and like control snakes and that sort of thing. And so most of the like villagers and like the people in the city like fear the king and the royal family, and they have like this very jaded perspective of them, and which is the perspective that Ria has. But because of an unlikely situation, Ria and Rani end up in the same place at the palace when Ria is sort of trying to pull off a robbery, and the two of them end up face to face, realizing that they look exactly alike and that they are probably twins, and they realize that they have some sort of magical connection as well. And so what they decide to do is switch places for about a month, I think, and live each other's lives because they both have their own sort of missions going on. Ria wants to find out who she really is and, you know, why she was abandoned as a child. And then Rani wants to find out sort of what's going on with the kingdom and, you know, look for this ancient artifact and this whole other stuff. And I don't want to like spoil too much, but yeah, they both are on sort of their own missions and end up like getting to know the people in each other's lives. And overall, it was a fantastic read. Like, it was such a fun fantasy, and it was a really cute read. I do feel like to a certain extent it was like a little too long for my taste, but regardless, like, I think it was really compelling. Like, I loved being in both Ronnie and Ria's heads and like seeing what they were up to and, you know, the different plot lines going on, but also how their two stories sort of connected afterwards as well towards the end. So that was really exciting. And I also really loved the villain in this book, which I just thought was really interesting because they sort of felt like a fairy tale villain, but in like a good way. Like, I really enjoyed it, and I'm curious to see where things are going to go in the second book, because there is going to be another book, and it's called Daughters of the Dawn, I believe. So yeah, I'm just really excited for that. And the two authors are actually Canadian, which was also super cool. And yeah, overall, I just had a fun time with it. So if you're looking for a like fun YA fantasy, if you're looking for something with twins in it, or if you're looking for a South Asian inspired fantasy, I would definitely pick this one up. All right, the last two books that I picked up in August, I didn't actually pick them up right after each other. I think I read Sisters of the Snake in between them, but they are The Maidens and The Silent Patient, both by Alex Michaelids. So let's start with how I wanted to read these. So I don't actually usually read thrillers, but I had been seeing The Maidens all over Instagram and like social media, and I was just so curious by it because it also seemed like a bit of a dark academia and had like a murder mystery, and it involved Greek mythology, and I was like, yes, these are all things I'd like. Funnily enough, I watch a lot of like crime shows and procedural shows. Like, I loved CSI when I was growing up, but I don't really read thrillers. So yeah, but this seemed really cool, so I wanted to pick it up. But I had heard from so many people that they didn't actually like this one, but they liked the author's first book, The Silent Patient, a lot more. And so I was kind of on the fence of which to read first, but since people thought that they liked this one less, I decided to go with this one so that I would have my expectations low for when I went into this one. But to be honest, after reading both of them, I don't really have a preference between both of them. I really liked both for very different reasons, and they felt very different to me despite being written by the same author. Like, the tone is still the same and like, you know, the vibe is still the same, but I felt like this one felt a lot like thicker and longer, and you got a lot more depth into each of the characters, whereas this one felt slightly less so, but I still liked the plot line going on in this one, and this one felt like it had more plot to it as well, to me at least. Yeah, I think they were just like different sort of books. If you've read them, like, you know, even the main characters, they're quite different, and how things turn out with each of them, they're quite different as well. So yeah, I enjoy them for different reasons. I think this one I just loved because I did not see the ending coming at all, I think, and it was really interesting when the sort of twist came along, because I was so convinced of like one way that it was gonna go, and I was so surprised when the twist came. And I also just loved how he tied in all of the Greek mythology. But for those of you who don't know, The Maidens follows the main character Mariana, who is this group therapist, and basically one day she gets a call from her niece Zoe, who goes to Cambridge University, and Zoe has just told her that her best friend at the university, Tara, has been brutally murdered and sort of like stabbed to death. And so she is like distraught and upset, and so Mariana decides to go to the university and help Zoe out, and she ends up getting mixed into what's going on there, and she begins to feel that the culprit might be one of Zoe's professors named Edward Fosca, who is the tragedy professor at Cambridge, and she starts to find these clues and gets wrapped up in this mystery and is very interested in these group of girls or young students who call themselves the Maidens, who are all part of this study group that Edward Fosca sort of leads. And so Mariana is like very sort of interested in this situation and wants to help her niece out. But then as you stay with Mariana, you start to learn that she has her own sort of demons in the closet and a lot of people that she's lost. And so it gets really interesting in that way. But yeah, this is like a super quick read. All the chapters are super short in this one and in The Silent Patient. That's just the author's style, which I really liked. And I was just like so wrapped up in this one. Like, I think I got to a certain point and then I just couldn't stop reading. Same with The Silent Patient. I just really wanted to find out what was going to happen at the end. But yeah, I really enjoy this one, and I think I really like the aspect of the sort of mythology that he brought in with Demeter and Persephone, and yeah, that was just super cool. And I just loved the twist. Like, I just didn't see it coming. And then The Silent Patient, for those of you who don't know, basically follows our main character Theo Farber, who is a criminal psychologist, I want to say. Yeah, criminal psychotherapist. And he basically gets interested in this criminal case involving a woman named Alice, who basically one day after having a very loving relationship with her husband, shoots him in the face 5 times and kills him, and basically goes silent immediately after the murder and won't say anything. And so she's put into this like psych ward at this place called the Grove. And so Theo decides to take a job there so that he can work with her as a patient because he's super interested in her case. And so he is sort of working there and dealing with the politics there and how the Grove might get closed, and also trying to figure out the mystery behind Alice and whether she actually did it or not. And it was just super, super cool. And this one also had a really cool twist, which I also didn't see coming, but I think it didn't shock me as much as the one in the Maidens. Personally, at least, because I feel like there was like a lot more seeds planted in this one, and this one was also a lot longer. I felt like there was a lot of plot, but there's also a lot more description, and I also felt like I had a deeper understanding of each of the characters, whereas this one I felt like I had a little bit more of a shallow interpretation of the characters. I don't know if that was just like the way I was reading it or what, but yeah, this one definitely felt like longer and slightly richer in my understanding of each character, but it also was a lot more focused on like 2 specific people, Theo and Alice, whereas, oh sorry, not Alice, Alicia. I've been saying the wrong name this entire time. Yeah, this one was more focused on Theo and Alicia, whereas this one had like a lot more characters to it, so you were in the psyche of a lot more people. But regardless, this one was also super, super cool. I think it also felt a little bit different because this one followed like a female main character and this one followed like a male main character, and so their perspectives just felt a little different, at least the way they were written. And yeah, I just like them both for very different reasons. So yeah, I can't really decide, but they're both very enjoyable thrillers. One thing that I found really interesting was that there is a cameo from some of the characters in this book that appear in this one, and it totally sort of went over my head when I read this one. And then I sort of reached the end and then was reading the like back cover of this one like before I was gonna read it, and then I realized, oh my god, this was the character that like showed up in the Maidens. And so that was like an interesting moment. But yeah, this one sort of takes place slightly before this one does. And that was kind of interesting to realize. So yeah, I'm interested to see if he's gonna like write another sort of mystery thriller that's in the world of these 2 books, or if it's gonna be something completely different. But regardless, I had so much fun with these, and it was like the perfect like fast reads that I was looking for this month, and I just had a really great time. So yeah, highly recommend if you're looking for thrillers to pick up. All right, but those were the 5 books that I picked up in August. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed hearing my thoughts on each of these books. Again, I'm so sorry that you didn't get like a wrap up in July because I just didn't read that month, but I'm glad that I came back swinging and actually read 5 full books this month, so that was exciting. And I'm hoping that that trend sort of continues into the rest of the year. So yeah, super excited to tell you my thoughts on September's books as well. But I would love to hear from you guys what books on this list you have read and what you thought of them. I would love to discuss any of your thoughts, and if there were any like sort of plot twists from these books that you want to discuss, I would love to talk about them in the comments. Let me know what you guys were reading as well this month and what you thought of them. If there are any books that I've mentioned before that you picked up this month that you'd like to tell me about, I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and go check out my Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads in the description down below if you want to get regular reading updates from me. And as always, please remember that the story ain't over. Bye!